Welcome to an Hatchman Tournament Report, Wildcat Invitational Tournament, Day 1, Games 1 through 3. So this is the list I've been playing for the last several months. I've basically painted it from scratch. It starts off with two hordes of Great Axe, which are old GW Black Orcs, with the potion of one of them has the potion of the Caterpillar. A horde of Axe, which are just GW Orcs, with a Brew of Sharpness. 5 regiments of Orklings, which are all GW Snotlings. 2 regiments of Morax, which are GW Savage Orcs. 3 Crushers, 2 Crudgers, one with the Sacred Horn and the Aura of Wild Charge. A War Drum, and finally the Wildcat. Okay, the first game of the tournament was against my friend Gentleman Tom Keegan, and it is Salt. The scenario was Salt the Earth. I was talking to Eric Trowbridge the other day, and he said that the worst scenario for Orcs is Salt the Earth. And after this game, I kind of agree. So I understand why now. It's just hard to get around to the tokens. Basically, if you don't get them fast, you are and burn them or do whatever you want, it is very difficult to win. So I set up pretty hard on the right with 2 of my units of Morax and my unit of a unit of Great Axe with the Potion of the Caterpillar, and then the middle was the one unit that I knew could probably handle a charge from his Ogre Legion, which was his, which was my Axe Horde. They also had a unit of Morax with them, and then finally on the very far left, I had a unit of Great Axe over there, ready to try to hold that flank. I have to say that Tom's style of play is not subtle. It is just come straight forward and beat the crap out of stuff. So on the first turn, of course, he is standing on the midpoint of the table already, and I have to start thinking about it. And this is where the Orcs sometimes are a little bad because of, if anybody else, it would have been pretty close that I could have actually probably got some charges off early. And I could have charged with my Morax, but I didn't. It's just to be a stupid unsupported charge, so why would I do that? Over here, he did the same thing. He has a unit of Boomers, one of his units of, I think they're called Hunters, and then one of his little units of Goblin, Wolf Rider looking dudes. And then I think his Boomer Sergeant moved to the top of the hill to start opening fire on my army. I think that base right there, if you can see it on the left side, that is where his guy is at. I think he was using one of my little extra bases to mark him. I ran one of my Crushers into his Boomers so they couldn't open fire on me this turn. He had done a few wounds again with his with Grakamak or whatever his name is, with Lightning Bolt on one of my units of Orklings, but it didn't really do anything. And then the other Crusher went ahead and charged his Red Goblin Wolf Rider things just to try to keep them from moving and threatening my flank. You can see here his Boomer Sergeant is up on the hill. He is shooting me up pretty good. What I should have done early in this game was burn the left token, because he burned one of his tokens right off the bat to get his Wildcat points. And if I could have burned one of those tokens there, it would have made a huge difference in the end of this game. But again, you can't see the end of the game when you're playing it, so it's kind of one of those retrospect things. I did do my best to try to jam him up over in the middle there. He had brought his Red Goblins up too far, and I charged a unit of Orklings into them to, again, try to jam him up so that he could not bring that huge legion of Ogres into the fight. So in my turn, I went ahead and charged my unit of Morax into his Ogre Legion, and I guess my Axe unit went into his Red Goblin things. My plan here was to try to pinch these 2 units here on the left-hand side and kill them, and then proceed into the flank of that Legion. And I was in probably the right position to do so at this point in time of the game. Over at this point in time, Tom had made a critical mistake and allowed my unit of Morax, with their extra wild charge, to flank charge into his Hunters. So, I mean, there's going to be 40 in the flank. That should hurt a lot. His Red Goblins and my hero, he kept wavering my hero and doing like 1 wound a turn and wavering. 1 wound. I don't even know if I killed him at the end of the game, but it was very, very frustrating to have that go on because I mean, those guys aren't that much of a threat, and I think I was just rolling really subpar on my hits on them. So anyway, so this was a good move on my part, just to be able to try to pinch that unit of hunters out of there. And I mean, that was going to be a good trade for me. Over here, my crusher is fighting with that unit of goblins, and in all my test games, I was easily able to take those things out with crushers, but my dice were just a little off. I mean, I wasn't doing enough damage. I mean, I was kind of counting on getting 2 hits a turn, and I was doing 1 and sometimes none. So that was troubling, but really nothing I could do about it. I mean, I made the right move. It's just that the execution was a little off. I made a huge mistake here. When I killed those red goblin wolf rider guys, I moved forward. I rolled like a 6 or something stupid, and now my flank is exposed to his hunters. And so that was a huge mistake. If all I had to do was just stay where I was at or even back up, and I would have been gold. But my brain was a little addled from too much Hofbrauhaus the night before, and so I made that mistake. So over here, the Morax easily destroyed the unit of hunters, and now I am looking at Grakamox right aside, or the butchers. My silly crusher was sitting there, and he kept getting wavered. Like I said, just every one of them kept taking 1 wound, and then Tom was rolling really high and wavering them, and it was almost inexplicable. I'm like, really couldn't help it. So anyway, I was pretty happy about the Morax going through. What I didn't do really well was support it. I should have had that Great Axe Horde moving up in support, and to finally just close the door on all this stuff, but I didn't do it. And I mean, I was just trying to play the scenario, which is that 1 token there with the crusher looking so questionable over there, continually wavered. I didn't want to leave the token behind because I needed it to win. And then there's another token that or another objective that the Morax were sitting right next to, and I was trying to move the Orclings in there to handle that one. So yeah, now my big unit of axe is hitting the flank by his hunters, and then more importantly, his Wildcat charges into the front of my Great Axe Horde. And normally I would just say that's a dead dude. Almost anything that charges Great Axe usually die. We'll see what happens this game, but I had that was one of my dice breakdowns of the game, was I needed to kill that Wildcat. If I would have killed that Wildcat, I would have swept through the middle of the table like it was nothing. But we have to see what happens. Here's just a better view of the whole thing. He used his butchers and his legion to kill my unit of Morax, but his hunters failed to kill my big axe horde, and so I was going to be able to turn around to kill them. The Wildcat did minimal damage to my Great Axe Horde, and my biggest problem here is now I'm right against that house, or I would have charged my Wildcat into one of these fights. But like I say, I kind of screwed up right here with this end of the table with just the positioning, I think. Over here on this flank, the deal is I went ahead and was able to secure the token in the woods with my Orclings, and then the Great Axe Horde stayed and held that. I had this. I spotted him a Great Axe Horde because I'm sitting there. I don't know what I was thinking. I should have had the Orclings, just left the Orclings behind or moved one behind to hold that place and then move forward to exploit his army. But I didn't do it. And eventually what happens is that disaster upon disaster happens in the middle when I fail to kill the Great Axe Horde. Failed to kill the Wildcat. And then his butchers charge in. I killed the butchers, and then he spikes the dice and rolls like 7 hits and 7 wounds and kills my Great Axe Horde. I was just devastated. And at that point, I had nothing left over on the left flank. Enter on turn 6, see the token that's at the bottom of the hill there? The Wildcat runs in and grabs the token. And Jim is saying, burn the token. I said, if I burn the token, I lose the game. So what happens is the Wildcat moves in there, takes the token, survives all the shooting attacks at him, and the game ends as a draw, which was, it was a tight draw. If there had been a turn 7, I would have been toast. There's no way I could have survived a turn 7 because his shooting was going to get me at the end here, because I just didn't really have anything to stop it. If he would have got to shoot on turn 7, it would have got me. And the fortunate thing that happened on turn 7 or turn 6 was I had one of my Orkling units moving toward the final objective, and actually it was on it. And then he opens up with Grokkamok or whatever his name is, and rolls lightning bolt. Any lightning bolt hit was going to take him out. They'd already down a few wounds because he had hit him. And he rolls everything. He rolls 1 hit. He needs anything but a 1 to wound. Rolls a 1. That's just how tight this game was. That 1 dice roll would have won him the game. Turn 7 dice roll would have won him the game. I was so lucky to get out of this game. I mean, as bad as some of my dice roll on the other side, at the end of the game, those dice were, the fact that his dice had let him down just a little bit really saved my ass. And so I got a draw, and I was happy about it. In many ways, this game was as close as they get, especially the dice. If over on the left side, if my Great Axe would have killed his Wildcat, I don't think there's anything he could have done to stop me from just sweeping through the table and taking him out. And on this flank, his last turn shooting thing with the Orklings, it was just devastating for him. I mean, all he needed was 1 wound to make me take a test, and obviously he would have probably got it, and then that would have been it for me. Also, he had the opportunity, if turn 7 opportunity was failed as well, and so that was really the only thing that saved my ass. So anyway, well played game, Tom. I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, it was so tight. I mean, I think my armpits were sweating underneath. I needed sponges because of how tight this game was. And just a lot of fun playing my friend. I was really hoping I'd get to play him at this event. I'm sure the next game will be every bit as fun as this one. And I think we both laughed half the game. It was just so much fun. Thank you, Tom, for the great game. Wow, my second game was against yet another friend, and that is just so cool. This time I was playing my friend Robert Lesh, and Robert and I had actually played some practice games online using these two armies, so it's kind of cool to see them out on the table together. I want to note that there is a unit of traders on the other side of the table, as Robert borrowed my Enslaved Guardian archers. Just sometimes it's hard with the COVID stuff and the things that are going on in the world to get miniatures from overseas, especially. And for some reason, those were really hard to get. And I was fortunate to have painted one of those units, and I hardly ever use it, but it was great for Robert to have access to it. But Robert set up really tight in the middle. He had everything there. He's got those Enslaved Guardians on both ends. He's got his Enslaved Guardian archers. He's got his middle. It's just basically, it's basically just a stabilized area with his soul snare in there. So that was really good. And I set up kind of wide this game, which is dumb. But the big problem is there's chunks of impassable terrain kind of dominate this table. The church on the end and that big ship kind of messed me up. And what I should have done was just ignored it and just stuck everything tight together and just fought in the middle like Robert did. But I didn't do it, like usual. But anyway, this was, I think, after my first turn, and I'm moving forward. I don't really recall, but I think this is basically where it's at, because Robert pretty much sat still, let me come to him most of this game, and then counterattacked, which is not a bad strategy at all, especially when you have a big advantage in the shooting phase. Robert let me go first this game, and I moved forward as fast as possible because I didn't want to get shot up. What he did have here on this right flank is he had his Slave Guardians, a Bone Giant, Shobik, and some other unit. What are they? They're just Revenant. They're archers. So he had a pretty strong group over here with Shobik, and anything is going to be better. Shobik to me, I call him Shobik the Unkillable, and sometimes I just call him Shobitch, but that's just because it's derogatory. And anyway, so I've came close to I've killed Shobik exactly one time in all the games I've played, and so just that is a rough guy to take out. Over here, I moved up as quickly as possible with everything, and over here he had one of his units of birds, as I call them, and then his Wildcat, a unit of his Slave Guardians, a unit of his Slave Guardian archers, and more importantly, his Soul Snare next to a big horde of skeleton spearmen. Now my plan here was to run my crushers into the soul snare or and I had two of them sitting there in perfect position to get to him. The issue was he kept wavering them. And I mean kept wavering. I mean like the entire game he wavered them. He would do one wound and waver them, and one wound, and it was so frustrating. Because, I mean, Soul Snare should have been dead by turn 2. Honestly, I mean, that was what should have happened this game, but just could not make it happen. This is much later in the game. I'm trying to kill his enslaved guardians, and I think what he did is he had his Wildcat here, and I charged it in the flank and killed it, but then I couldn't. That protected the enslaved guardian archers. I mean, some of the enslaved guardians, and they killed my axe horde. What's going to happen eventually is that unit is going to move into the middle of the table and get the 2 points for this section of the table. I was trying to hold him back over there on the other side as much as possible, but I ended up running into Shobik, and I'll just tell you what happens here. This is so frustrating. I have Orcish skull poles. I even had Sean make me models of Orcish skull poles. The first time I hit Shobik, I rolled one short of killing him. First time I rolled, I hit his bone giant, one short of killing him. Next turn I use him, but I've still rolled one short of killing him on both of them. And so with that, that's when the game just went totally pear-shaped. I just could not get rid of those two guys. Because if I would have got rid of them, I think I would have just crushed through the middle of his army like it was nothing. But it was just my fault. I just made a lot of mistakes this game, and just so many times that I just forgot things and made dumb errors, and so that's what happens. If there's anything in the game that can make Shobik go down, it's got to be a freaking horde of great axe, and that's what I said before. Was I missed killing him and the bone giant by just slivers. Even his enslaved guardians, I think I may have actually killed them eventually, or maybe not. And but like it's not being able to get rid of Shobik and the bone giant, they just stayed forever. He used his soul snare I charged both units of Orclings into the spearmen, which means it was going to be a slap fight for a while. But he used his soul snare to kill one of the units of Orclings, and then the 30 attacks did kill the second one. And then I'm going to pay for this because I'm going to get flank charged by that horde of skeletons. Over here, yeah, he's busted my horde of great axe. I went ahead and killed his Wildcat, but then his birds charged me in the rear, and they just have a bajillion attacks, of course, when they charge in the rear, which is a bad thing. I think I sent my Wildcat into his enslaved guardian archers, and they eventually killed him. It was bad. So it was just, the slave guardian archers are not horrible fighters. I mean, they're not the best, but they're not horrible. And the Wildcat, I think, was already wounded from something else, maybe even getting shot by them before. So that was my ploy, was to try to maybe kill those slave guardian archers and maybe kill the stupid soul snare. But the soul snare was what was getting me this whole game, was healing his guys back. Yeah, the consequences of not killing Shobik are even worse as the horde of skeleton spearmen go in along with Shobik, and I think his archers even got in on the action, but I'm not sure. I just couldn't kill I just was having no luck killing the bone giant either. I mean, I had him teetering so many times. Eventually, my horde of axe goes into his enslaved guardians, and I think I killed them, but it was really too little, too late at this point. I think I had actually both of my crushers on his bone giant, and like I said, I probably should have killed him. But what he had over here, like I said, Shobik and those guys, I think maybe even his Wild. No, that's not his Wild. Yeah, there's something else. But just not able to hurt them. And I do have a crusher right in the middle of that fight, as you can see. He had been charging into Shobik to try to do. He's got crushed too, and there's a good chance that he could do some wounds. But you can see those skull poles are all intact, which is just pathetic. That is just a pathetic mistake. I should have wiped Shobik out on the first turn and the giant out on the first turn if I would have remembered to use my skull poles. And I think I did eventually on his giant, but it was, the dice after that, the dice rolls were not close enough that they would have mattered. You can see here now I'm in real trouble as the Great Axe Horde has been destroyed by the combo of Shobik and the skeletons with spears. Still fighting over here on the right-hand side with his slave guardians. I don't know why I haven't killed them. They had me up to a lot of wounds there. And like I said, you can still see a skull pole sitting there that's not being used. So, again, that's just a tragedy. Very early in the game, I hid a unit of my Orclings behind that church where he couldn't see me. And my goal was just to hold this bottom section down here. I was really fighting hard to get the that left section there. And what happens is the I think I kill his bird unit, and then I lose the Wildcat, and that's what was going to keep me even on that one there. And I think that's how he got that section. But the most important thing was he had the middle of both sides, so that was 3 points just to begin with. And at best, I had a couple over here on this side, but I think I remember the final score was 3-2. So I think I did have 2, but that was it. Over here, I finally killed his slave guardians, and my Crudger is still fighting that stupid bone giant. He hadn't really had much hits on me, but I haven't had. I guess I didn't do very much to him either, because he was teetering from the very first turn, and I just could not finish him off. So that was tragic. A tragedy. I couldn't get rid of that bone giant at least, because this whole melee here is actually protecting Shobik and all that stuff from getting charged. So, all right, here's the last shot of the game. You can see Robert clearly has my middle section of 2 points. I think I have this back corner here for 1, or no, I'm pretty sure I have this back corner here because of the Orclings. And then I think that on the upper left here, it's contested because I have 3 unit strength to his 3 unit strength. And so he has 3 in the middle, and I believe I have 1 of these over here. So he's going to win 3-2, and a well-deserved victory for my friend Robert Lesh. The whole irony of this game was that Robert was sitting there telling me my own rules of playing game. I'm really going to try to play this scenario this game, and he did it to an excellent state. And I was really happy he actually listened to some tip that I had in one of my online games. But I just made a lot of mistakes this game, and nobody else to blame. I don't think that I made bad charges or anything, but just not using those skull poles was so key. And I had the tools. The Army had the tools to win this game, but their general just let them down, and that's all I got to say. I mean, there's no other way to explain. I mean, some people, well, it's a dice. No, this was not a dice game. The dice were kind of settled because, but where I made the mistake was not using my advantage of those Orcish skull poles to take out Shobik and the Bone Giant very early in the game. And I think I had the Bone Giant. I missed killing him 3 times by 1 point, which is crazy, but it just shows you the level of when you're playing like this, what the level of the margin for error is. It's just 1 sometimes, 1 or 2, and that's why the skull poles are there to help you out in those situations when you're on the thin margin of being able to do things. But I really thought I was going to cave in his left flank and then at least hold out on the right flank, and it turned out to be the exact opposite. I kind of held out on the right flank against his tougher stuff, and then the left flank somehow just got shredded. So anyway, great game, Robert. Hope to play you again. I think this is the 3rd or 4th time we've played at a tournament, and maybe next time we'll get to do it again. Thank you, sir. With my draw and my loss and almost 0 bonus points from the Wildcat, I plunged down the tables and ended up playing against Jim Liver's friend, Lee Heckman, for my 3rd game. He was playing Kingdoms of Men. I think he was actually using Jim's army, so that's kind of interesting because I think I've lost to Jim's army before too, so it's kind of ironic. But anyway, so we set up. This time, instead of screwing around with my deployment, I packed it in. I mean, I threw everything right into the middle. Threw 1 little flanker unit out there to stop his end stuff. But, I mean, since it was dominate, I was going right toward the middle. The 2 pieces of terrain in the middle, we just called them difficult instead of impassable because it's really bad in a dominate scenario where you put a lot of impassable terrain right in the middle of the table. So we just played them as difficult, and even though they look kind of impassable. But I think that was the right thing to do because, I mean, if you get to a point you can't actually get into the middle or get around the middle, that's kind of defeats the purpose of the game. You can see here what I've done is moved everything forward because I'm trying to win this scenario. Just want to get all the fight in the middle. I sent a unit of Orclings up around the edge of this hill, and I held both Crushers back to anything that came around the hill. I was going to be able to do something to them. What my plan was this time was to charge the Crushers into the, that was a handgunner horde, I think, or an archer horde, to stop them from shooting so much. Lee's shooting this game was beyond excellent. I mean, he pummeled me with shooting, and didn't really expect to get beat up that bad by shooting, but he didn't have that much shooting, but it was just very, very effective. I mean, he just rolled really, really well. That's all. What can you say? But anyway, the shooting did have a huge effect on this game. Lee had moved his pikeman there on the extreme flank up to menace my flank because I really wanted to try to turn toward the middle early on, and those pikemen were going to prevent me from doing that. His knights moved up to threaten the my left flank here a little bit. You see, shooting has done a couple of wounds to my Morax there. He just chose to shoot over the top of the chaff, the unit there, and try to wound them directly. And in the very middle, his shooting had, I think, wavered one of my units of Orclings there. The one I was trying to hide my Crusher behind because I was trying to get him into any of these archer units that were pinging away at me the entire game. Well, part of my plan was going to work right here. I went ahead and charged one of the Crushers into his knights to remove their thunderous charge. I also sent the other Crusher with the blade of slashing into his archers to attempt to keep them from shooting this turn. Everything else just kind of moved up. I really don't know why I angled. I guess maybe I misremembered that water well thing was just difficult terrain and not impassable, like I was trying to go around it or something, so who knows. But I was putting a lot of pressure here in the middle part of the table. This is probably my second turn. I'm pushing forward pretty hard into his guys. I'm going to try to send something into his pikemen to at least hold them up for a while because the Wildcat's over there with them. And then right in the middle I have a unit of Orclings and a Crudger that's going to try to take out the unit of archers there. His unit of polearms, as you see right in the middle there, they're pretty lethal because they have Brew of Strength on them. So that's some crushing 2 goodness on that particular unit. And right in the very middle, near the difficult terrain, it looks kind of like a rock. That is a unit of Fanatics, which are always lethal. And then right next to them is a General on Winged Beast. So that's, like I say, he's got a pretty good combination of stuff right there in the middle. So his General Winged Beast goes ahead and charges into my Crusher to get him out of the way so that the archers can continue to shoot. He did move his horde of polearms up to contest the middle here. The black base you see is actually where his Fanatics are located at this time. So it's all settling up to be a big next turn for both of us. So this turn I went for it. I rolled the Wildcat in a unit of Morax into his pikemen. Did a respectable amount of wounds considering that they have ensnare. I think I did 9 or 10 wounds. That's pretty good. And then I sent Orclings into his unit of polearms because I wanted to be able to chaff them up and then fight them. The Orclings and the Crudger went into the side of his unit of archers. Over in the very middle, the unit of the Great Axe Horde went into his Fanatics, and then just slaughtered them. I was able to get my unit of Morax and using the Wild Charge into his front of his unit of Knights. And then I think the Crusher went off in to fight something else, maybe to stop the Knights from potentially coming back into that fight on the next turn. I just thought this was a really cool tabletop view. It looks kind of like some of the old GW games. I think maybe if I had photoshopped it and put some backgrounds and stuff in it, it probably would look like that. So you can see my Axe Horde here in the middle is fighting. It looks like I'm fighting his General on Winged Beast. I think he actually charged him in here to keep me from moving forward into his other units. So pretty interesting. And over on the right flank, his pikemen absolutely just slaughtered my Morax unit, I think he rolls, I swear, I think he rolled 24 hits and 21 wounds and just annihilated them. For rolling for 4s and getting that many hits and then rolling for 4s to wound, holy cow. That was just, I was stunned by how much damage they put out. I mean, they shouldn't have put out that much. I mean, they should have put out a decent amount of damage, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, that was just crazy. One of the really bad things that happened to me was the Wildcat ended up stuck over here fighting a pikeman because I thought I could take him out. And then now I couldn't get any bonus points for the silly thing. The unit of Great Axe charged into his polearm horde and just butchered it. I mean, there was just lots of damage. His general on the winged beast died really, really fast right then. And then I think for some reason, I don't even know what that is. I think I'm fighting his Wildcat in the middle of the table with my Crusher. Over here, the Morax and the Orclings went ahead and destroyed his unit of Knights. And my other Orclings are fighting his archers now, which is always a good slap fight. His mage is over here throwing spells into me. And you could say my axe horde is horribly damaged by something. I'm thinking it was shooting that did that to him from the big rock lobber that he had, or siege engine that he had. But you could tell I've pretty much got the middle of the table. There's really nothing at this point that he can do about it. My Great Axe horde and a Crusher all charge into his Wildcat to kill it because I think there's was some bonus points for killing him this turn. So that happened there. And then over on the left-hand flank, the Morax and the Orclings go into his archers. And at this point in time, I think that was the end of the game. We just called it at this point because really nothing he could do to stop me from taking the whole center of the table. I think the big thing that happened this game was that some of my addled brain had started to thaw back out after the first 2 games. And I think I deployed a lot better this game, and I think that helped a lot. So I was able to, like I said, I could really punch toward the middle and keep everything in isolation, which is how Orcs play the best. It's just crunching into stuff. And really happy how my army played this turn, and was happy, of course, about the outcome. So now I slid back to some sort of decency of being 1-1-1 after the first day. Really disappointed in myself, but I can't undo it now, so nothing to worry about, and just have to play better the next time I play. So anyway, I had 3 good games. I got to play 2 people that are really good friends of mine, and then I got to play Lee Heckman, who is a really good friend of Jim's. So it was like playing 3 of your best friends in your basements. And you really can't ask for better at a tournament like that, where you get to play 3 really, really nice people, and that you would enjoy hanging around at any time. And that made me happy about the whole day, because they were having mercy upon me for my drinking antics the night before. And so Jim kept bringing me water and putting cold stuff on the back of my neck to get me going, and everybody was just really nice to me. So just had a great day the first day, and then I got to go out with my friends at Team Tennessee that night to eat some supper together, and that was always fun, of course.